This year, at hospitals across the nation, tens of thousands of our loved ones will be diagnosed with some form of leukemia or lymphoma, and many of them could die, hopelessly waiting for a viable matching donor that could never come. But what if I were to tell you that those days of waiting are over? That we are all curable? That each and every single one of us, regardless of our ethnic backgrounds, is curable? And that the cure rests in our diversity. The most sustainable cure of modern medicine is each other. Isn't that a trip? Our own DNA can save each other's lives. See, we're doing some fascinating things with research, and we're finding out some fascinating things with what we could do with the human potential with stem cell research and research that I'm conducting on my own for the treatment of PTSD. But what's truly fascinating is what's happening today, what's happening right now, what's been happening since 1987, when they established the National Marrow Donor Program. See, the first stem cell transplant occurred in 1968 at the University of Minnesota. It was a bone marrow transplant. Now, there are 3 types of bone marrow transplants, the first being the kind where they kill your diseased cells and marrow with chemo and replace it with bone marrow extracted from your own body. The second being the kind where they extract bone marrow from a twin, and the third and most successful of the 3 being the kind where they extract bone marrow from a blood relative and have that commingled with that of a very closely matching strangers, a donors. But now we know that unrelated donors of umbilical cord blood stem cells have a higher rate of safety and efficacy than using bone marrow extracted from a blood relative. Complete strangers using their DNA is more effective than using bone marrow extracted from a blood relative. And let me clarify this. Each time a child is born and that umbilical cord has been severed, instead of going into the trash with the rest of the medical waste and afterbirth, it's saved and can fill a bag that can be cryogenically frozen and used for multiple patients. Multiple patients. See, California has such a broad and diverse population that we should be the first state to feasibly declare in our state, in our hometowns, no patient ever need go without a match. If we were to collect the cord blood on a daily basis in California, we would have enough to have compatible matches for each and every single patient diagnosed with every form of leukemia, lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and over 241 life-threatening blood-borne illnesses to include sickle cell anemia, Crab disease, and severe immunodeficiency syndrome. And in some calculations, more than 2.5 times the number diagnosed. That's 250% the need. But for every patient that doesn't have a match, it's because a donor isn't available to give that match. That's us. That's our responsibility. No one's talking about this. How do we fix this? How do we fix this that no one is discussing this? Well, this is how we fix it. We discuss it. We talk about it. There's meaning and sanctity in giving of yourself so that others may live better. And it doesn't matter whether you're donating your own bone marrow or whether you're in Starbucks in line talking about it so other people can hear you, can eavesdrop on you. Or whether you have friends that are about to have a kid and you talk to them about donating their cord blood. This is how we're going to save the world, by putting it back in our hands. This is what awareness is, living in the solution. When you are doing this, when you are talking, when you are sharing, you are creating the awareness. You are the solution. You are living in the solution, and that's what we need to do. Build awareness. Now, back in 2013, I had no idea what a stem cell was. No. I mean, I knew, but I didn't really know. I was a disenchanted stockbroker. And I was in a state of pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. And if any of you know what that's like, you know that it's a hell that you don't want to be alone in. Not at all. And I was unbelievably narcissistic, but at the same time had no self-esteem, but had an ego to fill this entire room. My mind was asking all the wrong questions, like, what does God have in store for me? What does life have in store for me? What does the universe have in store for me? And it was drowning out my heart because I was filling a void, and I didn't even realize I was trying to fill a void, and my heart was really asking, what does life deserve of me? What do the people that love me deserve of me? What does the world deserve of me? What do I deserve of me? And so I was having a conversation with my great friend, Jason Tash, who's the co-founder of my cause, and we were talking about some things going on with our lives. And he was talking to me about his father, who was in the end stages of multiple sclerosis, and the worst kind of multiple sclerosis. He was a quadriplegic, paralyzed up to his face, at the mercy of the compassion of others. And selfishly, I thought right then and there that was going to be my purpose. I was going to make a change doing this, and we decided we were going to do a documentary. And we put together a camera crew and everything, and a Facebook group, and the list of people on the Facebook group that wanted to be patients to be interviewed was just so long and daunting, because when we finally got to the first patient, which was Jason's father, I couldn't conduct the interview. I had all of these questions lined up, but it was just, I couldn't bring my body to do that. It was just so disingenuous to be this reporter. I couldn't do it. But I had to do something, and I knew what I could do. So I started cold calling. I cold called everybody I could in the field of regenerative medicine, stem cell medicine, the CEOs, CMOs, CFOs, lead counsels, directors of media communications, public relations. And I called all the right people, and I went to the right medical conferences to meet those right people. And I didn't even realize that I was filling a void inside of me until I felt that hole shrink. The more and more I did this, the smaller that hole inside of me became. And before I knew it, Alan Fernandez, who at the time was the Associate Director of the Genetics Policy Institute and the co-founder of the World Stem Cell Summit, took me under his wing. And I found myself at the World Stem Cell Summit of 2013. And I was sitting at the Gala Awards dinner, and there had to have been at least 1,000 people at that Gala Awards dinner. And I was sitting front and center with the Associate Directors of the Genetics Policy Institute and the co-founder of the World Stem Cell Summit. And I was sitting across from Mr. Sanford and Mr. Burnham, the men that gave that $100 million grant that founded the Sanford Consortium for Regenerative Medicine. Mr. Sanford felt compelled, for some reason, to come up and shake my hand and say, "You are the future of stem cell." That blew me away. I thought maybe he was confused. I mean, we just run a youth awareness group. We called ourselves a youth awareness group because that was just enough credibility to have no credibility at all. You know? It just got us in through the door. So I didn't know what he meant by that until I found my calling the very next day, and I only had to go to 2 conferences. There were many conferences, but I only had to go to 2 because the first one that I went to was on biological insurance and private cord blood banking. 90% of all cord blood is banked by private institutions selling biological insurance where they take your disease, predisposed DNA, bank it, and sell it right back to you, often promising cures that don't exist, like for MS, Parkinson's, or Alzheimer's. Well, your bone marrow does not produce brain cells. It does not produce nerve cells. It just produces every single cell that floats around your bloodstream. So in this conference, it was chock full of hundreds of people, but they weren't doctors, researchers, or concerned citizens. They were businessmen and they were lobbyists. So in the second conference that I went to, it was all but completely empty. I was one of less than 20 people in there, and it was the conference where we learned that unrelated donors of umbilical cord blood stem cells have a higher rate of safety and efficacy than using bone marrow extracted from a blood relative or cord blood from a direct relative. That was empty. So I knew right then and there that's going to be my purpose, to bring this message out to the world. That's what we were going to do. This was our awareness campaign. And it starts with you. We need to revolutionize the way we as a species ensure our survival by redefining philanthropy, by redefining society as community and humanity as family. Because it is in our diversity that lies our cure. It is. You and I are modern medicine's most sustainable cure. So give. Give by talking about this. You can give your own bone marrow, you can give your own cord blood, but the best way to give is just to talk. Again, like at Starbucks, so somebody can eavesdrop on you while you're in line. Be the solution. Be the stem of a generation. Live in that solution. Raise the awareness.